Stop the demonstration immediately. Captain Roltek's voice thundered through the training hall, echoing off the polished black alloy walls. His command was sharp enough to make even the armored guards flinch, but the reason for his shock stood calmly in the center of the arena. A single human unarmored, and barely taller than a Velorian adolescent, while at her feet lay a full-grown Velorian soldier groaning in defeat. Moments earlier, the hall had been filled with confidence, even arrogance. Hundreds of alien spectators watched from tiered seating, their shimmering eyes glowing with curiosity. The Velorian Empire, after all, had conquered 12 star systems. They had subdued species larger, stronger, and far more technologically advanced than humans. They believed they had seen every form of combat, every type of warrior, but nothing had prepared them for this. The human, identified only as Sergeant Maya Torres, had moved like liquid fire, smooth, controlled, and impossibly fast. When the massive Velorian soldier lunged at her with all 4 arms extended, she didn't panic. She didn't hesitate. She simply stepped aside, guided his momentum with a single hand, and sent him tumbling with a technique so efficient it looked like sorcery. Gasps rippled through the alien crowd. The Velorian rose again, embarrassed, charging with twice the force. But Maya met him halfway. A twist of her hips, a sharp pivot. And suddenly, the towering warrior was flipped over her shoulder, slammed gently, almost respectfully, onto the ground. And she did it without armor, without claws, without even raising her voice. To the Velorians, who relied heavily on brute strength and advanced weaponry, the idea of fighting barehanded was laughable, primitive, even. But now, watching one of their strongest soldiers fail miserably against this small, calm human, that laughter died. Whispers filled the hall. What technique is that? Is she augmented? No. No implants detected. Impossible. No species fights like this. Roltek's mandibles twitched nervously. This wasn't a simple demonstration. This was a revelation. A warning wrapped in grace and precision. He stared at the human, expecting to see exhaustion. Fear-something. But SGT, Maya Torres, simply brushed a strand of hair behind her ear and waited for instructions. She wasn't even breathing hard, and for the first time in his decorated military career, Captain Roltek felt a cold, unfamiliar sensation crawl down his spine. Fear. The Velorians discovered Earth the same way they stumbled upon most primitive worlds, by sheer accident. A lone survey cruiser, drifting along the outer rim of an unremarkable spiral arm, detected a cluster of communication satellites orbiting a blue and green planet. At first glance, Earth appeared young, chaotic, and loud, just another developing civilization, barely beginning to understand space. The Velorians expected to find a species still arguing over borders, still throwing rocks or crude metal projectiles at each other. Maybe advanced enough to build basic satellites and primitive rockets. Instead, they found humans, a species that had survived ice ages, volcanic winters, planet-wide plagues, and countless wars, yet had refused to be erased. Humans had built civilizations on mountains, deserts, frozen tundras, and even floating on the sea. They adapted to anything. They endured everything. And they did it with a strange mixture of stubbornness, creativity, and reckless optimism. But for all the surprises humanity offered, our art, our science, our unpredictable sense of humor, nothing shocked the Velorians more than our training. When Velorian ambassadors requested a demonstration of Earth's defensive forces, they prepared themselves to see rows of missile silos, armored tanks rumbling across fields, and fleets of fighter jets slicing through the sky. And yes, Earth proudly showcased all of those. But then, the humans invited them to a simple rectangular room covered with padded mats. No weapons, no armor, just humans. The Velorians observed, with confusion, as men and women of all ages stepped forward, barefoot, focused. And then, without warning, they began to fight. Not wildly, not chaotically, but with razor-sharp precision. They struck with hands, elbows, knees, feet. They grappled, dodged, locked joints, and executed throws that sent full-grown adults crashing to the mat with surgical efficiency. The aliens watched in stunned silence. Humans were willingly hitting each other hard, and nobody seemed afraid. One Velorian finally whispered, "What is this ritual?" The humans answered casually, as if explaining how to tie a shoe. "Martial arts." Two simple words delivered with no fanfare. As though this astonishing skill was as ordinary as breathing. And that, more than anything else, unsettled the Velorians, because if humans saw this level of combat mastery as normal, what else were they capable of? To impress the visiting Velorian delegation and, to clear up their dangerous misconception that humans were primitive, Earth organized a grand mixed demonstration. The event showcased everything from elite military hand-to-hand systems, to everyday civilian self-defense, to the highly disciplined art of competitive combat sports. The Velorians expected a show. They had no idea they were about to witness history. The first matchup was deliberately simple. One human, one Velorian soldier, no weapons. The Velorians approved this format with smug confidence. To them, it was practically a ceremonial formality. Their chosen soldier stood a full head taller than any human present. His armor plates removed to keep things fair, though his natural physique alone made the match wildly unbalanced. Twice the mass of the human, muscles layered like braided steel, bones dense enough to withstand high-gravity conditions, and combat training, designed around X-armor suits and powered weaponry. So when the human fighter stepped forwards, Sergeant Maya Torres, the Velorians expected her to hesitate, maybe even refuse. Instead, she smiled, rolled her shoulders loose, and said with calm precision, "Ready when you are." That confidence unsettled them. The Velorian soldier charged, four powerful limbs pumping as he swung a heavy arm toward her with enough force to dent metal. But Maya didn't resist the blow. She redirected it. She dipped under his arm with the grace of a dancer, pivoted her hips, slid one foot behind his massive leg, and using nothing but physics and timing sent him tumbling onto his back with a thunderous impact. The Velorian spectators gasped in unison. Some stood from their seats. Others leaned forward, mandibles twitching in disbelief. Their soldier scrambled up, face flushed with humiliation. He roared in frustration, and attacked again with far more aggression. This was his mistake. Maya stepped into the charge, not away from it. She delivered a precise palm strike to his chest, just enough to disrupt his balance, then hooked his arm, twisted, and used his own momentum to flip him clean over her shoulder. He hit the mat again, harder this time. The crowd fell silent. Maya could have easily dislocated his arm. Every movement hinted at lethal potential. She deliberately held back. But humans don't fight to look strong. They fight to stay alive. They fight smart. And in that moment, the Velorians finally understood something more frightening than any weapon Earth possessed. Humans had turned their own bodies into weapons, and they had mastered them. After the demonstration ended, after Sergeant Maya Torres had effortlessly humbled a Velorian soldier, twice her size, the alien delegation demanded answers. The Velorians gathered in a semicircle, their bioluminescent eyes flickering with confusion, curiosity, and something uncomfortably close to fear. Captain Roltex stepped forward, mandibles tight with frustration. "Why?" he demanded. "Do you train your children to fight without weapons? Why teach them to strike, choke, grapple, and break bones with their bare hands?" He spoke as if he couldn't decide whether humans were insane or brilliant. The human ambassador simply shrugged, hands in his pockets, as though this were the most ordinary question in the world. "Because," he said calmly, "it's part of who we are." That answer was far too vague for the Velorians. They needed structure. They needed logic. They needed a reason why an entire species voluntarily practiced combat, so dangerous it could kill them. So the humans broke it down. Reason 1, survival. Before humans built cities or forged metal tools, they had only their bodies. Claws, none. Fangs, too small to matter. Natural armor, 0, yet they lived. They fought predators that were faster, stronger, and better armed. Humans learned to survive through creativity, teamwork, and physical technique. Long before weapons existed, self-defense was not optional, was life. Reason 2, discipline. Martial arts were not merely about punching or kicking. They were about breathing through fear, controlling panic, mastering emotion. A trained fighter isn't just strong, they're stable. Focused. This discipline shaped generations, teaching humans how to think clearly even when the world collapsed around them. Reason 3, respect. Not respect for violence, but respect for the responsibility that comes with strength. Combat training taught humility. You learned your limits. You learned the consequences of harm. You learned that true power is the power to choose restraint. Reason 4, preparedness. A weapon can be dropped, lost, or taken. Technology can malfunction. But your body, it is always with you. Humans trained because in the worst moments when everything else failed, the only tool left might be their own hands. The Velorians listened, stunned into silence. They prided themselves on physical superiority, yet they leaned fully on technology. Their strength came from devices, armor, and enhancements. Humans had something else entirely. A form of strength the Velorians had never considered, a weapon no one could steal, no one could deactivate, and no one could disarm. A weapon made of will, training, and instinct. A weapon called the human body. After returning to their flagship, Roltech called an emergency meeting so urgent that officers were still fastening their armor as they rushed into the command chamber. The atmosphere was tense, thick enough to cut with a blade. Every Velorian in the room had witnessed the demonstration. Every one of them was shaken. Roltech stood at the center, his posture rigid. This species, he began slowly, is dangerous. A murmur rippled through the room. His second-in-command stepped forward, mandibles twitching with unease. Their weapons are impressive. Their ships, while primitive by our standards, are functional. But their bodies, their training, he shook his head. It is unlike anything we have encountered. Another officer, younger but visibly shaken, added in a hushed voice, even their children learn these techniques. We saw them. Small ones, practicing balance, strikes, discipline. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Every Velorian understood the implication. A species that trained its young to fight without weapons was not merely strong. It was prepared. But then Roltech exhaled and said something none of them expected. Dangerous. Yes, he paused. But they are also disciplined, controlled, honorable. They do not fight because they love war. He tapped his chest lightly. They fight because survival demands it. The room shifted. Eyes widened. The tone changed from fear to respect. After a long, contemplative pause, Roltech delivered his final decision. We cannot conquer them. He raised his chin. But we can learn from them. And so, in a historic move, the Velorians returned to Earth not with threats, not with demands, but with a request for understanding. They sought knowledge, training, partnership. They wished to study the art humans had refined over millennia. It became the first step toward a powerful and unlikely alliance. Years later, Velorian academies transformed. Blue-skinned warriors practiced judo throws in zero-gravity chambers. They learned taekwondo kicks with perfect, measured form. They trained Muay Thai clinchers with unwavering discipline. Meditation halls echoed with deep, resonant breathing as Velorians learned to master their minds, as well as their muscles. At the entrance of the largest academy, a polished metal plaque proudly displayed a human proverb. Strength is not in the weapon, but the one who wields it. And across the galaxy, stories spread like wildfire. Tales of humans, a species that could fight without blades. A species that turned survival into art. A species small in stature, but towering in spirit. The Velorians no longer called humans primitive. They called them warriors of the empty hand. And across every star system, one truth echoed. Never underestimate a human. Because even unarmed, we are never truly defenseless.